Think back to the ancient world, and it is easy to picture massive, isolated empires, the Roman Republic dominating the Mediterranean, or the Han Dynasty ruling Eastern Asia, separated by thousands of miles of impassable terrain. But zooming out reveals a massive physical internet, a network of overland trails and maritime shipping lanes spanning from the Pacific to the Mediterranean, tying these distant civilizations together. The Standard story frames this network as a one-way street, caravans hauling luxury Chinese silk westward to end up draped over Roman elites. That story leaves a massive blank space right in the middle of the map. Between the 2nd century BCE and the 3rd century CE, the Indian subcontinent acted as the central engine driving this entire global exchange. Ancient Indian states propelled this early integration by exporting a dual currency. They supplied the raw, physical commodities that built the routes, and the philosophy, art, and science that civilizations utilized to organize their societies. Indian trade flowed outward along two distinct geographic vectors. To the south, maritime shipping lanes curved across the ocean. To the north, overland caravans pushed through brutal mountain passes to link with the main arteries of the Silk Road. Flowing out through southern ports were massive quantities of raw flavor and chemical utility. Merchants exported cinnamon, cardamom, and especially black pepper to Western markets. These botanicals were used for everything from preserving meat to medicinal remedies. Demand was so intense in the Mediterranean that these little seeds were routinely traded ounce for pure gold. Beyond aromatics, Indian merchants shipped out highly sought-after textiles like woven cotton, luminous precious stones mined from the subcontinent, and luxury fabrics. They also dealt heavily in silk. The creation of this fabric relies on sericulture, the ancient biological process of raising specific caterpillars, feeding them a strict diet of green mulberry leaves, and harvesting the protein fibers they spin into cocoons. Controlling the choke points of this massive commodity flow generated staggering localized wealth. Regional powers like the Kushanas minted heavy gold coinage, a direct physical receipt of the immense economic power they held over Eurasian trade. Establishing roads, maintaining rest stops, and securing borders across thousands of miles required deep pockets. The sheer density of physical wealth flowing out of India provided the financial fuel necessary to construct the ancient world's commercial infrastructure. Once the merchants paved and secured these roads, a different kind of traveler followed in their wake. Monks, scholars, and artists began navigating these harsh mountain passes, carrying ideas instead of cargo. Moving overland, Buddhist monks undertook perilous journeys into Central Asia and eventually China. They built monasteries and translated scriptures, using the established commercial routes to distribute complex spiritual thought across the continent. With the philosophy came the architecture. They exported the concept of the stupa, a monumental dome-shaped structure designed to house sacred relics and provide a focal point for meditation. When Indian traditions met foreign cultures along the Silk Road, they didn't overwrite them, they blended together, a process known as syncretism, which triggered an explosion of entirely new artistic movements. You can see this fusion perfectly in the Gandhara art style from the Northwest frontier. Artists took traditional Indian Buddhist subjects and carved them using Greco-Roman techniques, resulting statues with heavy toga-like drapery and classical halos. Compare that to the Mathura style developing simultaneously further inland. Carved from distinct reddish sandstone, these figures feature broad shoulders, sheer garments, and a localized aesthetic, showing how different hubs engaged in their own unique cross-pollination. To facilitate this massive intellectual exchange, the route needed a common operating system. Sanskrit emerged as the lingua franca, a shared classical language that allowed merchants from different empires to negotiate, and scholars to formalize the transfer of complex ideas. Through that shared language, Indian thinkers exported deeply complex scientific tools. They transmitted the base 10 decimal system and the formal mathematical concept of zero, innovations that spread across Eurasia, allowing astronomers to calculate planetary motions with a precision previously impossible. The raw physical commodities provided the immediate financial incentive to keep the roads open, while the mathematical and philosophical exports continued to influence foreign systems of thought long after the spices were sold. Look back at the map of the ancient world. It is a dense, intersecting web of biological commodities, massive stone monuments, and abstract mathematical theories. The silk and spice roads operated as the arteries of global human development. They were massive delivery systems for both wealth and wisdom. Take away the spices, the textiles, and the precious stones pouring out of the Indian subcontinent, and the staggering cost of maintaining thousands of miles of caravan trails collapses. Remove the traveling monks, the linguistic systems, and the mathematics, and the scientific and cultural evolution of Europe, Central Asia, and China grinds to a crawl.